Well, welcome everybody. My name is Perk Heid. This is my son Justin, and this is my father Ray. And we would like to welcome all of you guys. Very nice, large crowd to come, listen to our stories today. A lot of us, we have a great history in the Valley and lots of different stories, but I figured I would probably start off by picking the most famous story before Justin's time was the Routt Divide blowdown in 1997. How many people in here, by a quick show of hands, are familiar with the Routt Divide blowdown? Oh, good. So we have lots. And as I'm going along, don't hesitate to ask lots of questions because there's a ton of information about this. But sometimes I skip a thing here or there and it might get confusing. But for those of you that don't know, the Routt Divide blowdown happened October 24th, 1997. And it was 120 mile an hour winds. And they blew over approximately 40,000 acres worth of trees. And we were in a hunting camp when this happened. All of our clients had left and we got back in to take out the camp and get some horses out. It was on a small piece of property in the northern part of the Zirkles called Diamond Park. And we were using those cabins as our base of operations to get out of. And we were in Steamboat. And before the storm hit, decided to come into camp to spend the night. It was my brother-in-law and my good buddy Tony and I. And we went into the camp, and then the owners of the property, his son and 4 of his friends, were in there as well. So the 8 of us met up, and on our way into the park, it started to get unusually windy. And it was like we experienced a lot of bad weather, and we've seen a lot of scary stuff, but as we were driving up the 4-wheel drive road, literally the root balls on the trees were moving as we went in. And we got into the park itself, and there was about a foot of snow on the ground, and it was blowing unbelievably hard. I mean, it was 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and we made it into the camp, checked on the horses, and everything seemed fine, and the 5 in the cabin were kind of unaware of how windy it was. And early on that night, we had one tree fall down just right next to the cabins, and it pinned a couple of our trucks in. And we're like, wow, we should maybe move some of this stuff out of here. So we took our vehicles and parked them out in the field, checked on the horses that were in another bunch of trees a little distance away from us, and got back into the cabin. And it was about midnight that it started to get really bad. And we had a few trees fall directly on the cabin. Now, this is a cabin that was built in, I think, 1912, and it's a very, very strong cabin. But the trees were falling directly on it. We went out to check on the horses, and we could not get over to them. It was blowing so hard that we could not crawl on our hands and knees across the field to get to the horses. So we decided to pack up, and I was actually staying in a small tent with my brother-in-law and my good buddy Tony. And we immediately kind of decided we were abandoning the tent idea and went and got in the cabin with the other 5. And at about 1 in the morning, we kept hearing the sound, and it just sounded like jets flying over the top of us and turning up. And we walked out just to have a look around, and an entire section of trees called Lost Dog, which was the biggest single piece of trees that came down, it was about 3,500 acres. That all came down in one fell swoop at one time. And it was very interesting because it was almost like there was a force pushing in front of it that knocked all the trees over before the wind hit. You could actually hear all the trees coming down. So it was pretty amazing for us. We decided to get back into the cabins, and at about 2 o'clock in the morning, another tree fell down and hit a propane tank on the back of the cabins and busted the propane line. And all these trees had come down in the area, so we're trying to use a chainsaw to get to the propane tank to shut it off, which fortunately we did. But by about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we all realized we were in really, really big trouble. So we just grabbed everything we could, spent the night in the cabins. I don't think there was a person in there that slept that night. But the next morning, we woke up and walked out, and the devastation was unbelievable. These cabins were in a mature forest. And we walked out, and the entire forest was completely flat. The strangest thing about it was the only trees that were left standing were the dead ones because they didn't have the needles on them. And it was just a very bizarre scene of all these dead trees standing where everything else had been completely leveled. We didn't know what to do. Even the next morning, it was still blowing, 50, 60 miles an hour. My truck where I parked it was about 20 feet from where I parked it. And there was a giant snowbank that went up over the front, across it, and down off the back. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but we went in the night before. It had snowed about a foot. The next day, there was no snow on the ground. Everything had completely blown into wind drifts and was gone. So we kind of went into rescue mode, and I'm sure some of y'all remember back in the days of the big bag cell phones, we had one of those, and amazingly enough, it worked in camp. And I called my dad immediately, and I was like, hey, something happened up here. We don't know how to explain it, but you need to come rescue us. And don't cut any firewood on the way in. Just see what you can see. And so Dad was a little confused by the whole thing, because down in Steamboat and in Clark, there wasn't that much devastation at all. And where we were, you really couldn't see it from any place outside. So he was driving in, and he comes up the road, and there was a tree down in the road. And he's like, oh, come on, this isn't that bad. I can clear a tree for you. Come on, kids. And then he came around the corner into Lost Dog where you could see it. And all this old growth forest was just laid out completely flat, and the trees were stacked 30 feet high in places. And all still attached to their root systems. So it was just a very dangerous situation to be in. He immediately turned around and went back and got a bunch of locals to come try to rescue us. And they got a backhoe, and they started trying to cut their way into us. And we were on the inside with the horses trying to cut our way out. And we had 8 guys and 1 chainsaw. And amazingly enough, we cut for 3 days to get that open. And that's what it took to meet where we could get the horses out and get equipment and stuff in there. But that entire area will forever be changed from an old growth forest. Now you go in there and it's all burned as well right out. The whole thing blew down. They logged some of it, and then it all burned. So you go in there now, and it is a completely different environment than it was back in those days. And a little history on the storm and why it happened. It's been explained to me that there was a massive cell above Denver, in the Denver area. And this storm on the Denver side dropped about 3 or 4 feet of snow and trapped people in their vehicles all over I-25 in that area. But because of this massive cell, the jet stream kind of broke off and came back on itself. So the wind, instead of blowing out of the southwest or the west or the north like we're used to, came directly out of the east and blew all the trees the wrong way. So everything was pointing to the west, blown over out of the east. And they'd never experienced anything like this before. They didn't know what to call it. They were kind of like, maybe this is a microburst, but it was several miles wide and 25 miles long. And it was, 40,000 acres, and 6 million trees came down during this. And it was days before they even really got a good grip on what had actually happened to us. Yeah. But anybody got any crazy questions about that one? Oh, yes, that's a great question. So, were the horses okay? So this is a very interesting part of the whole storm. It would hit in certain places and not in others. Like the cabin that we were in had trees stacked on top of it like crazy. And I said that we were staying in a little tent. The tent stayed standing. And everything in the tent was totally fine, untouched. So the next day we went over to the horses, and my biggest thought was, okay, the tree's going to fall, they're going to break the corral open, and the horses can get out and do what they have to do to survive. We went over the next day, and it was an isolated patch of trees, right totally exposed to the middle of the park. Not one single tree fell on the horses. And they were fine. The horses, it did take us days to get them out, but they were totally fine. And it's amazing how we had complete devastation, and then 50 yards over, everything was still standing and totally fine. Yeah.
The cabin's still there?
Yeah. Got a new roof. Yeah, but the cabin still stands, and all the outbuildings still stand. And now it's been so long that all the lodge poles that have regrown in the area are all about 15 feet tall. So that lets you know how quick it how quick it regrows in that specific area.
What month again was it?
It was October 24th, so it was second rifle season. Yeah.
The year was.
What's that?
The year was.
1997. Yep. Yeah, it was 1997, and so for us, it was we were guiding elk hunting camps out of there, and it was the second half of the season because it's a 9-day season. So we went back in for ourselves just to bring the camp out. Yeah.
Chris is out there.
Yeah. His son was the other guy that was with me. Yeah.
Didn't they make a TV production out of that?
2 TV productions
And
out
you
of it,
guys were
actually.
really famous?
Yeah. Yeah. So they did do some TV series on it. The first one was, this is back at the very beginning of reality TV shows. And the Weather Channel did one. No, I'm sorry. It was a Discovery Channel. They had a show called Storm Warning. And they did a little 10-minute thing on our experience with the blowdown. But Jim Cantori of the Weather Channel actually came out to the ranch, and he was starting Storm Stories. So he just asked us if I could tell a story about bad weather, and I told him the story, and it ended up becoming one of the Storm Stories programs. Yeah, and that was a full 30-minute segment with a lot more information on it, and a lot more of a meteorological thing on it too, so they could get a good understanding of what it looked like.
So that would be on YouTube, maybe?
Yeah, you could YouTube Storm Stories. Might be the most popular one. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions for us? Anything? All right. So now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Or you want to go first? You want me to go first? Okay. So, hi, my name's Justin. This is my grandfather. This is my dad. I'm 22 years old, so I was born on the ranch, grew up out there, been working there my whole life. I just graduated college and I moved back to Steamboat full time. I'm getting married in August. A beautiful lady there in the back, sitting down.
All right.
And we're going to move back to the ranch full time, and I'm going to start running that for them so they can have a little bit of a break and just kind of enjoy the parts of the ranch. But we really pride ourselves on our conservation and stuff like that. Our ranch is in a conservation easement. So we clear the trails. A lot of the stuff that didn't come down in the blowdown is still coming down today. Great example, I went up to North Lake about 2 days ago to clear trails by hand in the wilderness area. So we really pride ourselves on our conservation and taking care of the animals, property, stuff like that. All of our hunting trips are ethical, and we make sure to give our hunters the best information they can. But with that being said, I don't have quite as crazy stories as my dad and my grandfather do. I mean, it's a curse for you guys, a blessing for me. I'm sure they're coming soon. But one of my most memorable stories from when I was little is it was the first time I went riding off the ranch with my dad and my grandpa and my mom and my brother and one of my grandfather's friends. We went out to Browns Park. I was 9 or 10 years old maybe. And the trip started, we were going to go to Vermilion Canyon. I don't know how many folks know where that is, but it is out in Browns Park. Beautiful canyon. There's a lot of hieroglyphs on the walls in the canyon and stuff like that, and they go way up the top. And we went out there, and it was July or August. It was starting to be late summer, so the water had come down that canyon. Floods pretty bad in the spring. All the water from the mountains and everything rushes out there. So we decided to go out later in the summer so we could go see it. My grandfather had the lovely idea we should go fishing and go check out the hieroglyphs and walk down the canyon. We're like, let's do it. That sounds great. We went out the night before. We stayed in, I remember staying in the horse trailer. We have one big stock trailer. Me and my little brother stayed on one cot, and then my parents had a couple other cots, and we stayed in the horse trailer and just tied the horses to the outside of the trailer there. We woke up at about 5 in the morning the next day. The sun was just starting to come up. And I remember walking out of the trailer, and the first thing I see is there's a big old rattlesnake curled up on the rock, waiting for the sun to come up. And he's sitting there, and he's so cold, he's not even rattling his tail. And sit there, and I kind of look at him for a while, and it's the first rattlesnake I've ever seen, so I'm not sure. And Dad comes out, and he goes, oh, just hang out for a second, you'll see. And we wait there, and the sun finally hits the rattlesnake, and his tail perks up, and it starts to tick back and forth. And then it starts to tick back and forth a little fast, and he starts rattling, and he slithers off the rock. And I was like, all right, well, that'll be a good way to start the morning. So we go ahead and we get the horses saddled. I was riding this mare named Cinnamon, who we still have. And then my brother was riding her sister Wasabi. And my dad was on his horse Sugar. And my mom was riding Fancy. And then my grandfather was riding
Probably Stormy.
Stormy at the time, yeah. And we started a ride. It's no big deal, riding through the desert. It starts to heat up pretty fast. And we got a rainstorm the night before that we didn't think was too bad. We were sleeping in the trailer. I mean, everything sounds louder in a steel trailer, so we just figured that's what it was. And kind of started to get through, and we get to this first water crossing, and the creek's about 3 feet higher than we thought it was supposed to be. And Mr. Ray Heid over here goes, "Oh, it won't be a big deal. This is the only creek crossing of the whole day. Don't worry about it. This is supposed to be a 2-hour ride, just so everyone knows. So keep track of the time here." We cross the first creek, and we get across, and it's about this wide, so the horses just jump over it. And we start riding down to the bottom, and we're riding down this ridge. And we get down to the bottom there, and there's another creek. And this creek was supposed to be dried up, and it's about 8 feet deep. And we're like, "Oh wow, it's kind of getting deep out here." And we find a shallower spot, and we kind of wade through. But half of us get across, and then the other half doesn't because the bank breaks loose, so we can't get the horses there. So we ride down the side of this creek, and it's me and my little brother, who was 6 at the time, and I'm 9, on our 2 horses, and then everybody else on the other side of the river. We're riding right down, and my grandfather, sweet old man that he is, yelling at us, "Don't freak out, it's fine, don't worry about it." And we keep going, we finally find a spot we can get across, and we get across the creek. And then we're riding, and you can see the canyon. And in between us and the canyon, it's about 100 yards of just mud. And we thought it was mud. A couple horses go through one spot, and me and poor Cinnamon, she slips a little bit, and she slides down into this mud hole, and she sinks to about her armpits. And we're going there. And I mean, my legs aren't quite long enough to touch underneath the saddle. And I'm kicking her, and I'm trying to get her to go. And she's pretty much swimming through the mud, and she comes out on the other side, and we were both covered. She was all the way to her ear tips in mud. And there's the river, Vermilion Canyon. There's the river that flows through it. And we go, "Opa, we probably shouldn't go into the canyon now. I mean, there's a lot of water out here. I'm sure there's going to be a lot in the river." And he goes, "Well, you guys can wait, but I'm going." And he grabs his fly rod off his horse, and he rigs up and tears off through the canyon, and there is water raging down, but you can walk kind of on the sides. And he's like, "I'll see you guys in a little bit." And we're like, "Okay, dookie." And we started walking down the canyon. We catch back up to him, and we spent about an hour and a half in the canyon, and it starts to rain again just a little bit, and for whatever reason, who knows, we decided, you know what, it's just a little rainstorm, it can't be that bad. So we decided to hang out a little bit longer down in the canyon, and we're looking at all the hieroglyphs and everything going on there, and all the cave drawings and all this stuff that's been preserved down in this canyon, and it's beautiful. And we're fishing, and there's cutthroats in there, and they're all about that long, and they're super healthy, and the water's clear. And the water starts to get real murky, and I remember it was like this rich blue water coming out of these springs, and all of a sudden it's just mud. Almost instantly. And the horses are on the right. If you're looking down the river, they're on the right side of the river, and the trail's on the left side of the river. And the canyon's about 8 miles long of uncrossable terrain. And we're like, well, that's not good. And the water starts to come up a little bit. So we walk back down to the horse, and we get on the horse. And by the time we all get saddled up and on the horses, sure enough, the water's so high we can't get across the river. So our little 2-hour horseback ride, we ended up having to get on the horses, and we ride around the canyon. We're riding up through these steep rocks, and my mom's telling us to hold on to mane. So we're holding on to the horse's mane about as high up as you can get. So you're leaning forward, you're pulling yourself out of the saddle, and we climb up on top of this plateau, and we're riding along the canyon. I mean, it's a big 200-foot deep canyon. And we're riding around the side of it there, and we ride on that side of the canyon for 8 hours. And Mr. Ray Heid here swore up and down he was never lost. To this day, he tells me he's never lost. Sometimes he just forgets where he's going the quickest way. So we took the scenic route, and we came around, and we were riding through big caves and stuff like that, and around all sorts of stuff. And there were, it was like a straight out of a Wild West movie. And we left about 5 in the morning that morning, and we showed up about 7 o'clock that night. So there you go.
Browns Park. Western Craig.
Western Craig.
Yeah, you go take a ride in Maybell and that.
Okay.
You been back?
Well, we went to the sand wash a lot to go ride dirt bikes too, which is
We decided not to take horses.
a little bit. Yeah, after that, I was like, I'm never riding a horse there again. No way.
Western Craig.
All right, guys. They can cut me off at any time. But what one of my favorite stories is it's the year before the Wilderness Act went in, and we decided to ride up the North Fork of the Elk River to one of Delby, my little brother's camp. And it's a beautiful evening. Snow and the colors of the trees couldn't be more beautiful, and the reflection in the water was just unreal. And we get up there, and just before we get to camp, this bull elk runs across the front of us. And one of the guys jumps off his horse and shoots the elk. So we clean it all up, and I said, let's take a hind quarter of this down, and something may get in here and eat the rest of this elk. So we took off the hind quarter, went down to where the camp was, and that time there wasn't wilderness area at that time. It started the next day, the next week, the next year. And so we made camp for the horses, settled in, got the cook, everything started up. And meanwhile, I took the hind quarter of that elk. We'll take some of this home anyway in case the bears get in and clean it up. Got up to camp, and I just threw the hind quarter of the elk up against the tent. Got ready to eat, and I just laid back, and I said, oh, that made me a good pillow. I just leaned back against my pillow and fell sound asleep. Next morning I woke up, and I thought there was something behind me. And I got up and walked around. My pillow was on the other side of the river. The elk. So the bear come up right behind me, took the elk and drug it across.
You're lucky.
The thing with that story is the bear that ate my pillow.
Wow.
Trying to go into Vic.
Oh, sure, if you want.
Okay. We had 6 hunters in camp, and back up in the same thing. One of the guys dropped out, so I called my cousin, Gladys Heid, who was working at the straight line. I said, we've got an opening for another hunter. If somebody comes by. This little guy comes in. He's carrying his new rifle, still in a box. She said, well, my cousin's short one person up in his elk camp. And this guy said, yeah, great. So he called the guy that was helping us build our house. About 10 o'clock at night, when he drives into camp with this new hunter. And I've got 5 hunters here, all from Chicago. And but they'd all gone to bed. So I pull into camp, and Vic gets out of the thing and goes over to the cabin. And I said, no, only the cook stays in the cabin. You go in the tent there with those 6 guys, 5 guys. And so Vic goes in and makes himself as comfortable as can be, being a doctor from Chicago that hadn't been out in the woods that much. He got excited on the plane coming out here. He was going to buy a house in Steamboat. Everybody's talking hunting. He said, God, I've got to get into this. He went down, bought himself a rifle, got a license, came into camp in the middle of the night, and went in, made himself at home with these 5 other hunters that were already in there. And the next morning, they all come to the breakfast table about 4 in the morning, and pretty soon, maybe you've heard the name, Vic Steiner. Okay. He's the hunter that just showed up. Dr. Vic. they all come in and sit down. Nobody says much. Pretty soon they get to talking to Vic. He said, "Where are you guys from?" "Oh, we're from the Black Forest area outside of Chicago." Vic said, "Yeah, that's funny. That's where I live." And they get to talking back and forth. Pretty soon it just gets dead quiet. Somebody says, "Are you Vic Steiner?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you delivered all of our children." And so he got really a lot of fun. They had to take care of Vic. But he gets up the next morning, we get on the horses, and Vic still comes out of the tent with his new gun still in the box. And down the trail the ways, he rides up to me and says, "Do you know how to load this?" But they all get to talking, and he said, "Wait, are you Vic Steiner from Chicago?" He says, "Yeah." "And you delivered all of our children."
Great stories.
But Vic, the next year he showed up as one of our employees. And for 4 or 5 years he came out and helped us run.
How long did y'all had the ranch?
We bought the ranch in my uncle Delby started the ranch, bought the ranch in 1962.
62.
And then he had diabetes. So he was in fairly poor health, and my dad and our family would always come out and help him in the summer times. Back in those days, they mostly just operated in the summer, and they would ship off all the horses in the winter, and he worked for slope maintenance at the ski area in the wintertime. And he passed away Christmas of '85, so our family came out and took over the ranch the spring of '86. Now, I actually have a funny picture of Delby over there that the gentleman just handed me of him skiing on one ski. His diabetes got so bad he couldn't put his foot in a boot, so he went everywhere with a set of outriggers on one ski. I was a little kid, I followed him around a lot in that exact setup right there. And then our other, Delby's older brother, Corky, he was the head of the ski patrol for 30 plus years. Yeah. And a lot of ski patrollers refer to it as the Corky days or the post-Corky days. I hear the Corky days were a little rough. Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions for us? Doesn't have to be about our stories about the ranch or family or anything like that.
Was it Corky that lived on Hill Street?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. The mayor of Hill Street.
In fact, we moved into that house in 1938 when I was 1 year old.
Oh.
I wonder which one it was. 38.
The belt buckle was from, I played polo in college. Yeah. I
So
played
was
polo.
Timer Heid uncle or a cousin or?
His uncle. Yeah.
What now?
Timer.
Yeah, Timer was my dad's youngest brother.
Boys Market.
Yeah. And they started that. That was the first grocery store in Steamboat, I
Exactly.
believe. Yeah, and it was Boys Market. It was on the back half of FM Light and Sons.
No, it's actually half of FM Light and Sons building was the Boys Market.
There you go.
The east half.
Yeah.
And then they decided that they wanted to expand their store, so Pop sold that store and built a big store in behind. And they took the wall out and made the store twice as wide.
So now you're coming back to run the ranch, so what exactly would you do every day?
So,
Just curious, 20-year-old going to work.
So we do horseback rides. That's our main source of income. That's what the ranch does. So we do an hour horseback ride at 8:30, a 10 o'clock horseback ride that's 2 hours, and a 2 o'clock horseback ride that's 2 hours.
Half days.
And then we have half days at 9 a.m. and then we do all day rides. And then so we do those summer and winter. And then in the fall we do fully guided elk hunting. And then also towards the end of the summer we do fly fishing trips on horseback in the circles. So I ride a little bit here and there still. I do a lot more. I work with a lot of the greener horses and new horses and stuff like that. Work on training them and getting them ready. So that's pretty much what I do day to day. And then I get to go on a trail ride every now and then and talk to people and tell stories and all that good stuff. But pretty much work with horses from sunup to sundown.
Is the ranch up by Clark?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that, sorry?
How many head of horses?
We have 42.
I take a left at the Clark
May I?
store. It's left at the Clark store. On
Left,
62.
I want to tell this story. About 6 weeks ago, I was at a Walmart getting flowers with Becky and Perk.
That would be my wife.
And the phone rings, and Becky picks up, and it's the big cowboy over there, Justin, saying there's about 30-some horses out on the road, and Perk said, he wants to be the ranch manager. I'm going to breakfast.
That sounds like a you problem.
Fact, a new problem.
Are you guys still skiing Sand Mountain, riding up and skiing down?
Yeah, I started that actually started in 1952 when they just closed all the country schoolhouses and started busing all the kids into town. And the kids from Clark came up to me and said, our dad's going to take us up Sand Mountain. Why don't you come with us? Okay. You know, I looked at that mountain for so long. Yeah, I want to go up there and ski. So I take off, and I'm in my Northland racing skis with seal edges, bear trap toes, and a long thong binding. And we started climbing Sand Mountain. And they're in their ranch shoes, just a toe piece and a rubber band around the heel. My long tongs didn't. It felt like I was tearing my whole legs out of the body. We still do it. It's a 7-hour horseback ride. 3.5 hours up, 3.5 hours back. Put your skins on your skis when you get up there and tie up the horses. 2 hours to climb up to the top of Sand. And 5 minutes to get back. I've done it every year since. Still doing it.
Whoa. And that's what was an early spring trip for us. You want to do it, depending on how the snow melts, anytime in early May to early June. And you wait till the snow's melted down below, but Sand Mountain still has good snow up on the face. But the hard part is when you're riding your horses up there, nobody's been up there yet for the year, so there's down trees on the trail. And then there's still places where there's deep snow banks to get around, and we're always the first ones in there. So it's always a pretty good adventure. It's definitely a real adventure. And every year when Dad says, let's go to Sand, it's like, we'll give it another shot.
It's a real adventure to every camp we go to.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Ray a question, if I might. That this town has changed so much since you got here. How do you feel about the change?
Unreal. It really is. I mean, I remember when the only hill we had was Hollison Hill, and the only toe was the boat toe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about between 3 and 4 years old. And if you wanted to get out of the boat toe, you just wave like this. Cable would drop to the ground. You'd go over, and I'd lay in the house, and I'd lay my skis down and just lay down on them. Mom would take us over there in the morning with our lunch, and at noon they'd shut everything off, make sure there was a kid behind each lunch sack. And then they'd start it back up. When they closed there, we'd walk back over to the boys' market and help stock shelves in the grocery store. And I was so dyslexic, I flunked the first grade, and I flunked the third grade. And I finally heard a couple of people, ladies talking. She said, Ray really isn't dumb. He's just smart in a different way.
Fair enough. Might apply to all of us.
How did your family come to Steamboat?
Yeah.
How did they?
Okay,
Who was
my
the first?
great-grandfather, he was working in the mines over in Leadville, when he decided to get out of the mining and head over here. So he came over, and right at the foot of Yellow Jacket Pass, he established a ranch. And as you're going from Steamboat out that way, and you turn out to go over the stagecoach, there's a big red barn on your right side, and that was Grouse Creek Jones's barn. That was my great-grandfather. And that barn's still there.
What year
Ironic.
was that?
Oh,
That was
What year?
1911.
1911? Uh-huh.
89.
1889.
Yeah,
Wow.
when they came in, it's my recollection.
Uh-huh.
When he first came in there and started, they actually had a gold mine over the base of Rabbit Ears.
Mhm.
But they had the freight line, the stage business. And at the ranch there, I mean, the outhouse was a three-holer. If you got off that stage, they had to go to the bathroom. And the toilet paper was a Sears and Roebuck cabinet.
Do you mean Yellow Jacket Pass, 14 and 131?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
right before you start up Yellow Jacket Pass, that little creek right there is Grouse Creek.
Right.
And the barn, I did not realize this until I went out through there last year. The barn is gone.
No, the red barn is still there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say,
There's
I
a-
thought they had removed it.
No, it's still on the right side. You hit it just before you start up the pass.
Looks like the
There's a
little-
barn on the right side.
Okay.
And how old's that barn?
Well, there's a log in the back, the northwest side of the barn, there's a log where it burned. But the date carved into that log is 1917.
Wow.
And then they rebuilt that barn, which is still there.
So it's right before the story.
Both my granddad and my great-granddad drove the freight line in the stagecoach in the Steamboat. So then Routt Hannah,
That was a stage stop then.
yeah, it was a stage
Oh,
stop where
that's
they
why it
switched
looks like
horses
a, huh,
to come on into town.
huh.
Still there.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that was the barn that his mom, Ruby, and then Ruby's, there was 9 of them
Yeah.
total. And the other one was Hazy Warner. So it was
okay.
Hazy Warner and Benita Bristol from the CMC, Everett, actually, her husband. But it was Benita, Hazy, and Grandma Ruby were all born in that barn, along with 6 others.
Wow.
Back in those days, you just didn't go to the hospital. You went out into the barn.
Grandma Ralston was actually a midwife for almost all the children born out in the country. And Hazy, being the oldest, she would always go along and kept a diary from the time she was 6 years old. And write down when somebody was born, who their parents were, and everything else. And when these kids would go to get a driver's license, they'd realize they don't have a birth certificate. They'd go to Hazy and she'd take a diary to the courthouse.
So from there going into Steamboat by horse?
Yeah, yep. And what the stage line was running, it was basically the Vale Eagle area.
Wolcott.
Walcott, yeah, it was going from Walcott, coming up over here, and then going on up to Hans Peak. Because at that time, pre-1913, the county seat was still in Hans Peak. And Hans Peak was considered the center of the county, but it wasn't Routt and Moffat County. The whole county was one big county called Yampa, I believe. And then they divided it, and it was right in that 1913 area where they decided to move the county seat to Steamboat. And it was, Hans Peak was kind of the first community in the whole area, and it was all based around gold mining. And so they had there was like 3,500 people living in Hans Peak in the early 1900s. Yeah, far bigger than Steamboat. Yeah, and then as the gold rush kind of dried up and everybody went to California and 49 and all of that stuff, Hans Peak kind of dried up and turned into a little bit of a ghost town for quite a while. But it's come back since. It's a pretty popular spot, but I think some of the cabins are the same.
Tim McGill still has a gold claim up there.
Yep.
Still lives on the backside of the mountain.
Yeah.
Who does?
Tim McGill.
Oh.
He's a speed skier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He has a cabin up almost to the top of Hans Peak
Huh.
that was his parents, his dad, his granddad.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But yeah, they moved. they moved everything down to Steamboat from Hans Peak right around 1913, and that was the same year that they destroyed the Steamboat Spring itself because they were dynamiting as they came around the corner to bring the railroad in. And back in those days, it was tourists coming in from California to soak in the hot springs. And they were bringing the rail lines through when they were dynamiting around the hill, and I think it's the iron spring they messed up and it quit chugging like it did, yeah. But even back in those days, going back to how much has the town changed and stuff like that, Steamboat really was founded as a tourist town. And it's always been a tourist town. But back when they developed the ski area, I think 80% of the Steamboat's revenue was agriculture, and maybe 20% tourism. And now the agriculture has remained the same, but tourism's about 90%, 97% of the revenue. So the ag stayed the same, but tourism has definitely blossomed around it for sure. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like the cowboy ski town, we have people come out to the ranch all the time, and we ask them why they came out here, and they're like, well, we see all these places in Colorado that used to be the cowboy ski town or whatever, and a lot of them say that Steamboat's the only one left that still has ag roots, but also has great skiing. So
yeah, it is that. And growing up, every kid in the school skied, same as Dad. Justin's class has got a little bit bigger, and they actually did other sports like football and things like that.
We got
we knew nothing. Not well, yeah, not things we knew anything about. But yeah, when I was in high school, every single kid skied, and it was amazing how even the ranch kids out in the middle of nowhere all were part of the skiing community, and everybody did. One of my friends, one of the Yeager family, the younger son Bobby Yeager, we were talking, and he's like, yeah, I loved Winter Sports Club and ski jumping. And I was like, you were a ski jumper? He was like, yeah, I jumped for like 8 years. And I had absolutely no idea, because I just thought he was the farm kid next door. But yeah, everybody seemed to have a big part of it for sure.
We're the only ski marching band.
Oh yeah, and the only marching band on skis. They actually took that whole show to the Disney World one time. Yeah.
They actually skied in Chicago on their skis.
Cool.
And put rollers off of roller skates
Museum
on their skis.
I think the museum has one of those skis.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think when they did it in Disney World, they actually put AstroTurf on the bottom.
I went to the parade on 4th of July, and I thought it was wonderful, and somebody sitting next to me said, oh, it's nothing like it used to be. What did the parade used to be?
That's a good dad question. What did the parade used to be like when you were growing up? 4th of July.
Yeah, oh golly, it's what you live for. It's the only time the ranchers got a chance to come to town. And we just had our 67th or 68th high school reunion. And we were sitting there, and the little girl next to me says, my birthday's in 3 days. Because we always had our high school reunions the first 10 days in October. And the girl next said, well, my birthday's in 4 or 5 days. I said, so we counted out, and we counted 10 people whose birthday is the first 10 days in October. It just so happens if you put that all together, and that's 9 months before the winter carnival.
So how many people came to your last reunion?
We had 10 people
Oh, 10,
with
you
the,
said,
actually
okay.
were birthdays. And I just, somebody the other day said, my dad's 88 or 89 years old, and his birthday's October 14th. Born in Steamboat? I said, yeah, well. You must have liked the Winter Carnival, too.
But the Winter Carnival and 4th of July both have definitely changed a lot. I mean, even from when I was little. I remember Winter Carnival and 4th of July were kind of free-for-all for everyone. And I remember being a kid, like when I was 5, 6 years old, like 4th of July, running out in the middle of the street in front of floats to grab candy and stuff like that.
Right.
And dogs running around everywhere, and Orans had their camels out there, and all sorts of crazy fun things. And it's definitely I would say they've reeled it in maybe a little bit, maybe a little more tame. Other than that, it's about the same.
We have time for maybe one more question or closing thoughts. Thanks. Anyone else need to get something in they're wondering about?
We just want to say, remember that Steamboat's super important. This is a really special place, and let's try and keep it that way. You know, I know there can be some frustrating things that happen in this town, but remember we're all still one community and stuff like that, okay?